Welcome everyone to another episode of Binder Than That. This is a show by me, Pranav Sreenivas, and my brother, Prajit Sreenivas. We're in the career season of Binder Than That, and this week we will be talking to someone who is a speech therapist and teacher for children who are special needs, Medha Bhardvaj. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Medha. I am a speech therapist and I've been working for I think I'm going on my 5th year.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And to get into the questions, what's a typical day as a speech therapist?
So what I typically do is, in my job as a speech therapist, I work in the schools currently. So what I do is I typically see students in certain block frames where I do different therapies such as articulation therapy, so the production of sounds, language therapy. I also work with students who have devices. I also do fluency, which is if the students stutter, I help give them some strategies, or I just work with them on educating them on what stuttering is. And sometimes speech therapists also do voice, but I do not have any kids with any vocal issues right now on my caseload.
Okay, very interesting. And so just to get into your career, what was your major for your bachelor's degree?
So for my bachelor's degree, I double majored in child learning and development, and then speech language pathology and audiology.
Awesome. And how about your master's degree? I know you got a master's degree as well. What did you working with for that?
So for my master's degree, I majored in communication disorders, and I did both of those at UT Dallas.
Awesome. And so what really motivated you to become a speech therapist in the first place?
So I think what motivated me was when I was in Plano ISD, I took a class called Education and Training, and I worked in a self-contained unit, which is a unit for kids with intellectual disabilities. And I really enjoyed working with them. I knew I wanted to work with kids. I just didn't know in what sense I really wanted to work with kids yet. But that really helped me understand that that kind of setting was where I felt I wanted to be. So then I kind of had a couple of routes that I could have taken. I could have been a teacher. I could have been a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, but then I ended up with speech therapy because, as you can tell, I like to talk a lot. So, it just worked out well.
That's no problem for this show. And I'm sure working with kids is definitely very fun and all. But what do you think is the hardest part with working in the school with children?
So I'm currently in a middle school, and I think the hardest part for me would have to be working with students who may not want to work with me. I know that's a thing that comes up in the middle school ages a lot. But what I try to do is I try to make it as relatable as possible to the kids so that, they find speech therapy more fun and functional rather than just a task that they have to do every day or weekly.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's a really important skill that's a really useful skill when you're working with children in a school environment like that. And that kind of transitions us into our next question, which is, what would you say is the most critical or some of the most critical skills that you need to be successful in that type of environment?
So in the school environment, I think that there are a couple of things that I think an educator needs. I think the number one thing is empathy. I work in a Title I school, so a lot of my students are low income. So I really need to understand that there are days that they may not want to do speech, and we can talk about other things or do other things while working on our goals, because sometimes you just need to be there for them rather than them just sitting there doing their goals every time they see you. I think another thing is patience. Growing up, I didn't really have that much patience, but I've definitely learned to have a lot of patience, especially for the kids that I work with, just because I know that they need me, and I enjoy giving them my time and helping them through any communication difficulties they may have.
Yeah, that's great. And what would you say is the most enjoyable part of your work, or the most exciting work that you've done over your 5 years as a speech therapist?
I think for me, the most exciting thing that I've done is I've started an autism group. And essentially what that is at my school is it's a group for kids that are more high functioning on the spectrum, and they are able to work together to kind of learn more about their disability. I think that's probably the best part of my job, is being able to, at the middle school level, teach students about their disability and help them understand how it may affect them, and help them understand that that doesn't stop them from doing anything that they could potentially strive for. It doesn't stop them from reaching their goals. It's just a different ability rather than them seeing it as a crutch.
Right. And I'm in middle school right now. I'm pretty sure kids that have these disabilities really think that it's kind of a negative thing for them. But I think what you're doing is really helping people realize that it's not, it's just a different way that they think about things.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And going back to when you were in high school, when did you realize you wanted to pursue the career of speech therapy? Was it kind of a summer activity you did, or what was it?
So it was a class. So the education and training class. Thankfully, I was fortunate enough to take that class and understand that, you know, I can take this route of speech therapy. And I went into college knowing that. So that was definitely the most important thing that I've done so far in terms of kind of starting my career.
And when you went into college, after you got interested in it, what kind of classes, or what did you need to do to kind of prepare yourself for becoming a speech therapist?
So to become a speech therapist, you needed to have clinical hours. So a lot of my undergrad and later on in grad school, a lot of those classes that I had to take were clinical courses. I also had to take a lot of courses in both adult and pediatric communication disorders, just because when you're looking at the field of speech therapy, there is more than one little sector of speech therapy. There's peds and adults, but there's also, you know, a hospital setting, there's a private practice, there's home health, there's like nursing homes that you could also work in. So a lot of my education kind of surrounded all of those topics, but I was able to take electives to kind of hone in on my niche that I wanted to work on, which was pediatric speech therapy, specifically in the schools. So I took a lot of classes with literacy development, and I took a lot of classes that had to do with child learning and development, what it looks like for even babies. So I took a class that was like birth to 3, and we also work on not only speech impairments or communication impairments, but we also work on cognition and swallowing disorders. So those are some courses that I had to take as well in my curriculum.
Yeah, and sticking on to the topic that you mentioned briefly there, how is it different when you're working in one of those other fields, like a nursing home or a private practice, compared to a school district, which is what you chose to do?
Yeah, so for me, the reason I wanted to work in the schools was because I knew that I was able to make my own decisions autonomously. I am able to evaluate and kind of like prescribe my own speech therapy for my students. So it was able to be, in my opinion, it's a little bit more equitable and it's there as a resource for the kids. A lot of times with other sectors, you're depending on insurance, whereas it was important to me to be, I guess, my own leader in terms of what I can give to my kids. So whenever I'm working in the schools, I'm able to prescribe like once or twice a week services for each of my kids, or even if I wanted to, I could make it like 3 times a week for 15 minutes if the kid doesn't tolerate 30 minutes once a week. I also work in a home health setting. So I do 2 types of speech therapy, one at the schools and one in home health. And I guess one downside to home health would be, submitting insurance claims and waiting for that to be approved by the doctor sending in orders for speech therapy. It's just a little bit more of a hassle. What's nice about the schools is that it's, if the kid qualifies, it's a free resource for everybody.
Yeah,
That's
and
the public school.
absolutely. And I know that that can be a definite hassle there. And we mentioned it before about what the most difficult part of your profession is. Now I want to ask, what would you say is the most rewarding part? What do you look forward to the most whenever you get a new student or whenever you have a new kind of project to work on?
Yeah, so I think in terms of students, I just like meeting them and building a rapport and helping them progress through their goals so that they can eventually like graduate from speech, which is always the goal of every kid, is to leave me, even though I might not want them to leave me, but the goal is for them to graduate, and my goal is to get them to their goal. In terms of projects, I kind of build them on their own. So unless I kind of think of something, I normally don't take anything on, except for the new autism club that I did start.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Prajit, do you have anything to ask?
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, in your autism club, is that kind of a block in the school day? How does that work? After school, before school? How does that club work?
Just to make it more equitable for the kids, I make sure that it's during their lunchtime. So they just have lunch with me once a week and we watch TED Talks, we do some discussions, and sometimes we'll read poems, but it's all from autistic individuals that have put these resources out there. And we kind of just like watch it together or listen to it together, and we just talk about different things that I've found that will help them understand themselves and understand how, or help me understand too, how they may perceive the world, because I know it's different.
Right. And for all the kids, we appreciate what you're doing.
For sure, thank you.
Yeah, and you mentioned being able to learn from the kids. And what would you say are some of the most important things that you have learned from working with kids, or what did you kind of pick up from working with those kids that you didn't really expect that you would when you were going into it?
I don't know if this was unexpected, but I definitely have to keep up with like whatever they like. So again, making things relatable for them, whether it be like a new TV show or a new video game that kids are playing, but I just have to keep it relatable. And I think that's something that the kids kind of keep me young, I guess, as I grow older, but it's fun to just interact with them.
Yep, and from transitioning from college to your first year of doing speech therapy, how much do you think college prepared you for the work, and how much was just learning it as you went through it?
I think college prepared me for the knowledge, but a lot of the therapy I had to learn myself through my experiences, and a lot of the report writing too. So I had the basic knowledge and skills, but I developed a more, I guess, I became a well-rounded therapist as I worked in the industry a little bit more.
And if you had to go back and give yourself some advice when you first got interested in speech therapy, or even before that, like before you took the class, when you were kind of exploring different options, what advice would you give yourself now that you know what you know in your 5 years of speech therapy?
In terms of like doing anything different, I don't think I would have done anything differently, but if I were to give myself advice, I think I would just tell myself that, you know, everything would be okay, and then to focus on just enjoying your time and learning the coursework for what it is, rather than focusing on just memorizing things so that you're able to get that grade.
Mm-hmm. And to any high school, middle school students who are thinking of going into this field, what advice would you have for them?
I think my advice would be to just get as much experience as possible. A lot of times that's the only way you can figure out that's the way you can figure out which part of speech therapy is the best fit for you. I was very lucky to go to a clinical program which had a lot of clinical experiences for me. Not everyone is as fortunate to be able to go to a program that has everything laid out for them like that. If their program doesn't have that, I would say seek it out yourself. Like, try your best to have medical experience, have outpatient experience, have private practice experience, and a school experience at different levels too. So try elementary, try high school. Do your best to try everything in the field so that you're able to get a good picture of what you really want to do.
Yeah, and kind of segueing from that question on what advice you would give to middle and high schoolers, what do you want to tell all of those middle and high schoolers that you've learned from your 5 years of speech therapy, or what advice you're trying to get out to everyone as they're going through school, if they have sort of speech disabilities or whatever else kind of learning disabilities that you work with?
I think for me, I would say I think to the other kids, I would say just don't let anyone get you down. Know that you are capable, and just try your best. Just try your best in everything that you do. And if you're putting forth the effort, everything will work out.
Yeah, that's a great message.
Okay, and I think we're approaching the end of the show, but before we finish, I actually went through speech therapy as an elementary school kid, and I always felt like I was kind of embarrassed by my kind of speech disability impediment. But my speech therapist in my school really helped me become like more confident. I was always kind of conscious about going to speech therapy like 3 times a week, because I was kind of pulled out of class and people were like, oh, where is he going? What is happening?
Yeah.
But after I finished, I really I feel like I gained more confidence, and the work you're doing really helps people. So thank you.
Good, no problem.
Okay, and to our audience, thank you for watching this video of Been There, Done That.
We'll be coming with more episodes of the career series soon, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Bye.
And thank you, Medha, for your great answers and great advice to everyone that's watching this show. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.